Hello and welcome to BariAftercare. Hey, I want to start off by asking a favor of you. First of all, if you're listening on the podcast, BariAftercare, the podcast, please reach out to some friends and suggest the podcast to them. Also, for anybody listening, if you are not a member of BariAftercare, I encourage you to go to BariAftercare.com. We are transitioning to an upgraded version called BariAftercare Complete. And the reason we're doing this is because we are now adding, in addition to the 2 weekly videos that I provide, we are adding 3 monthly videos. You've been seeing one already or hearing one sometimes on the podcast by Dana Rosser, who is the author of a great book called Through Thick and Thin. Her husband, Dr. Butch Rosser, is a surgeon and also had bariatric surgery. So what Dana does is every month she talks about some aspect of going through the bariatric lifestyle, to include the bariatric surgery and afterwards, from the perspective of the loved ones. They have children and how his weight affected them, their relationship, the marriage, all those sorts of things. And it's been a really great addition to BariAftercare. This month, we're starting to have a 30-minute video each month by a registered dietitian who specializes in bariatrics, and also an exercise physiologist who's written 2 books on bariatric exercise. So you'll be getting those in addition to what we've already done, including discounts on other programs, the retreat that I do, um, and weekly worksheets or monthly worksheets, as the case may be sometimes, depending on what's going on. But I would encourage you to check that out. And that again is www.bariaftercare.com. So today we're going to be talking about stress. How does stress affect the body? And what is the relationship between stress and weight? Because as I've shared with you several times over the course of these videos and the podcast, that the number one response people give to me when I ask them about weight regain, whether it's in relation to having had surgery or not, they say it's stress. And of course, as I've shared with you, I tell them stress does not increase weight. Eating increases weight. But there may be more to what I'm saying, because there are some suggestions that the way the body responds to stress biologically can also lead to increased chances of weight gain. So even though you may know some about stress and weight gain, I'm going to go through some interesting information because I think this is relevant to every one of us. If you're the one person on the universe that doesn't have a stressful existence, go ahead and click off now. But for the rest of us, whose lives typically include way too much stress, I can't think anybody I know whose life doesn't include quite a bit of stress. Let me help you understand the physiological effects on stress. And I want to relate this back to some videos I've been doing in recent weeks about the effects of stress on children. The effects of stress on children, if they're in chronic situations of stress, where they may be living in a stressful environment related to alcohol or drug abuse by the parents, or maybe there is chronic arguing between the parents, which causes chronic stress in the household. Maybe a child is being abused or neglected, or there's a sick family member, and so therefore there's a lot of stress in the family. Whatever causes the reason, whatever causes the stress, whatever the reasons are, children who endure a chronic level of stress, meaning it's ongoing, it goes on for a long time, those children's physiology changes in a way that later shows up in a lot of chronic illnesses throughout the body, and especially autoimmune diseases. There's a lot of research to support that, which I'm not going to go into, but I do want to kind of connect the podcasts and the series of videos so that if you remember when I talked about childhood chronic stress and its effects on weight, I also want you to understand that It may not be weight, but it may be an autoimmune disorder or stress as it relates to every single system of your body, which I'm going to talk about right now. So hang on, here we go. And our bodies are so beautifully and wonderfully created that they are built to handle stress, in small doses. But we live in a fast-paced, overly stimulated environment with technology and television and billboards and so much, right? That ongoing long term, which is also referred to as chronic stress, it can take a real toll on your body in most every system of your body. We're going to start with the muscles because stress absolutely causes your muscles to tense up, right? If you think about something that causes you tension, your muscles automatically tense up. It's almost a reflexive action, how the body responds to stress. And it does that to kind of guard you against injury or pain. So you tense up. So if you're going to get someone go punch you in the arm, your muscles are tensed and it's going to hurt less, hopefully. Well, we're not going to be talking about physical violence here, but we're talking about chronic stress in the muscles. So if you're chronically stressed, or you experience stress throughout the day, getting the kids ready for school, or then the job, and then coming home and doing laundry and preparing dinner and taking kids to all their events, and maybe you're doing this as a team or as a single parent or whatever it is, but this constant stress causes a lot of muscle tension. So our muscles are always on guard. And so our body is going to respond to that with some stress-related disorders. Headaches are one of the most common stress-related disorders. They can be migraine headaches, tension-type headaches. There are a lot of different types of headaches, but many, many, many of them are related to stress. Just the rate of my speech is causing me stress right now. So, breathe deep, right? But you get a lot of pain in the headaches, the shoulders, the neck, but also the back, the lower back, and the upper extremities, your jaw, right? If you've got a lot of tension, your body is carrying this and you're going to feel it in different parts of your body. So, of course, there's wonderful ways to deal with this, but they're time consuming and often consume a lot of our money, right? So if you get massages on a regular basis, that's a wonderful way to handle stress. But there are also free ways like breathing, which we've talked about, doing deep breathing, slowing your whole system down, feeling those muscles kind of relax. There are, if you do relaxation techniques like, tightening every muscle group and then relaxing them, it helps to relieve the tension in those muscle sets. And that will decrease the incidence of pain and stress-related disorders and improve your overall well-being. But we think we don't have time for that kind of thing. We think we don't have time to sit for 5 minutes and just breathe and let our bodies relax. Think about it. 5 minutes to breathe and relax versus how much time and money spent going to chiropractors, massages, and physicians. It's worth the trade-off. Let's talk about how chronic stress, affects the respiratory system, right? The respiratory system, of course, gives oxygen to our cells and gets carbon dioxide out of our body. So strong emotions, which can be stressful situations from the outside related to job, relationships, etc., can cause shortness of breath. It increases your breath rate, rapid breathing. And, most people can handle that okay if it's temporary, and the body will go back to its normal breath rate. But if you've got some asthma, or if you've got COPD, like emphysema, bronchitis, those sorts of things, respiratory diseases, this chronic kinds of stress can make those worse and worse and worse. And if you've ever seen anybody who really struggles with serious respiratory diseases and distress, it is terrifying for them and for you. So, all of us can benefit by learning breathing techniques that slow down our bodies. We hear so much about these relaxation methods, and we tend to go blah, 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 whatever. But when you think about the realities of chronic stress on every part of our body, every organ, every body system, hopefully you will take the time. It's usually not until we face something that's very frightening, like a panic attack or an actual life threatening event, a stroke, a heart attack, that we start to pay attention. Kind of like with weight, right? A lot of people don't consider weight loss surgery until there's some really serious health condition that's impinging their quality of life. So let's take a more proactive approach to our own health and deal with stress so that when we wind down at the end of the day, one of the things we're doing is just doing some kind of mental relaxation using breath to de stress our bodies. So, our cardiovascular systems, heart, blood vessels, right? That's the cardiovascular system. Now, there's acute stress, the momentary short term kind of thing, and that's going to increase the heart rate, stronger contractions of the heart muscles. And again, depending on a person's overall health, that can be a little too taxing on the body. Especially, think about people who have maybe they've got a pulmonary disease, and then you add the increased pressure on the heart, can easily lead to a heart attack. Or people who are carrying 2, 3, 400 extra pounds are already taxing the heart muscles. You add an acute stress, or even worse, have chronic stress that's ongoing, well, the muscles, those large muscles of the heart and the blood vessels that direct the blood to them, they dilate, they get bigger and wider, which means more blood is being pumped to those parts of the body and it's elevating blood pressure. So now we got stress, increased taxing on the heart muscles, increase in blood pressure. And what's that going to lead to? Well, it's going to lead to those things that we really, 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 really want to avoid: hypertension, which leads to strokes, and heart attacks. So these stress hormones, and you'll hear a lot about, there are different ones, but the one we hear a lot about is cortisol. But long term chronic stress really increases the risk for diseases or events that can kill people very quickly: heart attacks and strokes, right? And this is different for men and women. We've heard some of that, but it's also for a woman, the effects are different with these stress hormones depending on where you're at in life stage. If you're premenopausal, or if you're perimenopause, if you're peri or postmenopausal. So if you're younger and you're still having a regular period, your body is better equipped because of the hormones still active in your body to deal with that kind of stress. Not that it doesn't take a toll, but if you're postmenopausal, if you've already gone through what they used to call the change and you're no longer having a regular menstrual cycle, well, postmenopausal women are at a greater risk for the effects of stress on heart disease. So, ladies, take note. We need to, not just women, but we all literally need to take some deep breaths from time to time. Heck, my watch reminds me to breathe. And it will actually do the breathing count for me, right? So that I'm breathing at a pace that slows me down. And it even says even 1 minute of relaxed breathing can be beneficial to your health. So imagine if you did 2 or 3 minutes worth of relaxation breathing. Amazing. So what about the endocrine system, which is, the hypothalamus and the pituitary and the adrenal glands? You know, These together, they're the driver of what's called the endocrine stress response, right? And they produce steroids called glucocorticoids, which includes cortisol, the one we hear a lot about. Cortisol is referred to as the stress hormone, right? So the stress hormone is really behind a lot of these physiological effects of stress. So when you have a stressful event, like somebody honks at you on the highway because you're coming into their lane, you react, right? You have an increase in cortisol, which gives you instant energy that's required to deal with whatever the challenge in front of you is. So it's a very helpful thing during an acute stressful time. If bear's chasing you, that cortisol is going to help you activate you. You're going to be thinking more clearly, you're going to move more quickly, and it's going to help. And then after the stress, things go back to kind of a normal thing. However, if there is chronic stress, this cortisol is being pumped through your body for longer periods of time than it is helpful, and it's going to start to cause a lot of issues, including chronic fatigue, diabetes, obesity, depression, and immune disorders. So we don't want to have that high level of stress pushing cortisol through our bodies because it's really, really detrimental. And we don't talk about this a lot, but I'm here to ask you to think about this to the degree that you at least just slow down, do some inhales and exhales out through your mouth. And a little tip here, the exhale being longer than the inhale will help you to calm down more easily. So, slowing your body down requires a longer exhale. Slow, deep breathing, inhale through the nose, even slower, deeper breathing on the exhale through the nose. Now let's talk about our tummies, right? Our gastrointestinal systems. Who doesn't know that stress can affect our guts, right? We have the brain gut communication. And when we have stress, you might feel pain, you might feel bloating, you might feel gas, stomach upset. Some people develop diarrhea when they have a lot of anxiety. Some people develop constipation when they feel a lot of stress, chronic ongoing stress. Now, these kinds of issues can lead to longer lasting gut diseases and dysfunction. So, so far we've talked about how stress being the and the hormones related to stress and our body's muscular reactions to stress, how that affects every single area of our bodies. So, again, we were talking about stress and the stomach, pain, bloating, nausea, vomiting, if it's severe enough, right? Our bowels, pain, bloating, discomfort, the diarrhea, the constipation, that muscle cramping, those spasms really can be very, very painful. And then if this goes on for long enough, stress can especially affect people who have chronic bowel disorders, such as inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome. And so you end up with more pain, more frustration. And the doctors are going to look for biological issues. And a really good physician is also going to ask about your stress levels, because learning to ease stress in helpful ways can decrease our physiological symptoms that are stress related. And the stress related biological symptoms are many, 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 right? All right. So let's talk about, let's talk about a few more body systems here, like our reproductive system. So for men and women both, a lot of stress, as you know, can cause a decrease in sexual interest. It's like, my God, I've got kids and laundry and job and homework and PTA and all these other things. It's like, and you want me to do what? And act like I'm interested in it? Please. So, sexual desire can absolutely be diminished by increased chronic stress. Reproduction can also be negatively affected. So, a lot of times, couples who are dealing with, stress trying to conceive, well, for males, chronic stress can negatively impact sperm production. So, that doesn't help. And for women, stress can negatively impact a woman's ability to conceive and the health of her pregnancy and the postpartum depression. Did you know that depression, by the way, this is kind of an aside, is the leading complication of pregnancy and postpartum adjustment? And I don't think enough attention is given to how many women suffer from um, postpartum depression. And that can also be related to stress, right? You may not have enough support, or you may be completely overwhelmed. And of course, your hormones are all over the place, right? But stress can affect, okay, so we talked about sexual desire, reproduction, and can cause the body to become vulnerable for infection. So with men, they can become more easily, um, they can get infections in their testes, the prostate gland, the urethra. Women can have infections in their sexual organs as well. So there's another area, emotional distress. Now, stress management, again, hopefully physicians are encouraging, right? A healthy support network, a social support network. We know how important in every area of life, whether it's infertility groups or suicide, victims of families of suicide, the survivors, groups for that, groups for people who are dealing with weight struggles, groups for people who have had weight loss surgery, all kinds of groups. We know the critical importance of social support in managing stress. Of course, regular exercise, which is something you as a bariatric patient want to be doing anyway, is an incredible way to manage your body's stress. And I will tell you that exercise for me is absolutely as much for my brain and my physical body as it is for, you know, the benefits of muscle, whatever, because I'm a pretty intense person. I carry a lot of stress with me. And so exercising, whether it's on my treadmill or whether it's doing yoga, which I do both of them many nights a week, is really, really beneficial to my head, my stress levels, working energy out of my system, and getting my stress hormones at a more manageable level, as is getting enough sleep. We know that, right? Now, let's talk specifically about what's the deal with stress and weight gain. Does stress actually cause weight gain? Well, I don't know. Let's see what the doctors have to say here. The body has this system of hormonal checks and balances. And check this out, that may actually promote weight gain when you're stressed. So that is interesting. It may be the stress itself that does affect, to some degree, weight gain. We've talked about cortisol, right? That stress hormone. One of the goals of cortisol is to provide energy for the body. Like I said, if you're in an acute, in the moment, stressful event, you've got to have this surge of cortisol to give you energy, to help you think more clearly. But cortisol stimulates fat and carbohydrate metabolism for fast energy. So that sounds like a positive, right? But it also stimulates insulin release and the maintenance of blood sugar levels. And the end result, of all those things happening together is ding, 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 an increase in appetite. So, chronic stress, chronic surges of cortisol interacts with the body in ways that actually result in an increase in appetite. So, stress itself doesn't necessarily cause weight gain, but it causes an increase in appetite. An increase in appetite leads to eating, and eating more leads to weight gain, right? So, if you have chronic stress, and I would say, and if you fail to manage your stress well, if you don't do relaxation, if you don't get massages, if you don't do relaxation techniques, this can result in chronically elevated cortisol levels that does stimulate your appetite. So the end result, if you give in to the increased hunger, would be weight gain or difficulty in losing weight, if that's what you're working on. So cortisol promotes weight gain by this increase in appetite, but it also affects, check this out, it also affects where you put on the weight. So, what research has found is that fat deposits related to stress and elevated cortisol take place in the abdomen rather than like the hips. So, the abdominal area is where the body takes the hit. And that fat accumulation in the waist area, in the abdomen, has long been referred to as toxic fat. And the reason they refer to abdominal fat as toxic fat is because weight in your belly is strongly correlated, you've heard this before, with cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease, huh? Strokes, heart attacks. So people who carry weight around their middle have an increased likelihood of struggling from those cardiovascular diseases. Now, it may be genetically that you're predisposed to carry weight there, or it may be related to chronic stress. Whatever it's related to, you can do something about this. And as you know, I constantly talk about what can we do, not what can't we do in life, right? I had a I had a not so pleasant long argument with my husband over the weekend that lasted the entire weekend. Fortunately, we were involved in some activities with the kids and grandkids, so we couldn't talk to each other the whole time, or we probably would have argued the whole time. But I kept thinking to myself, and this is so true, I kept thinking to myself, focus on things you can control. Focus on things you do have an impact on, which was what I was choosing to think and how I was choosing to manage my stress. What I chose to let come out of my mouth, what I chose to not let come out of my mouth. So that's difficult. But the truth is, whether it's about our weight, and I often talk about let's focus on the areas of weight management that we can influence or control, the same is true to stress, right? So, biologically, I have a predisposition for hypertension. I have high blood pressure. I've had it since I was in my mid 40s. My weight is fine. I am a little high tense. I am a little intense, but my blood pressure was pretty darn high. And I actually had an incident because I did not manage it well, in which I have lost the vision in my right eye. Now, when I close my left eye, I can see a screen, but I can't read anything. And so, a lesson to you as a gift from me is pay attention. I was having horrible headaches. Didn't pay any attention to that because I've always had headaches. I could have managed my stress, gotten on blood pressure medication, and prevented this injury to my eye, right? So, stress management is something you can choose to actively do, and it is a critical part in the weight loss program. So, if you have extra weight and have a lot of stress, you absolutely want to engage in some stress management techniques. And so exercise, of course, is the fastest and best method for weight loss in this case, because you're going to release endorphins as you're losing this weight. And endorphins have natural stress fighting properties, can lower the cortisol. Now, exercise has been a part of my life always. And yet, it just depends on some things you can't control, like your heredity. So, I do the things that I can do, which is my treadmill and next one, activities they say such as yoga, of course, love me some yoga, and meditation also help lower stress hormone levels. So, what are you doing in your life not only to lead to weight loss and weight maintenance, but that also may have the added benefit of lowering your cortisol levels? So, you may be doing your body much greater favors than you're even aware of. All right. So, a lot of people, when we have stress, we just talked about the physiological reactions which increase your appetite. But for a lot of people, stress is another way of saying emotional eating, right? And that's an attempt to fulfill some sort of psychological need when you're under stress. So if you're under stress, maybe what you need, and we've talked about this in a few videos back about emotional eating, maybe what you need is some company or some affirmation or some validation or some encouragement. That's different. So you have to look at the big picture here. What is your body telling you? What do you need emotionally? What do you need psychologically? What do you need physiologically? So a person who is developing a healthy lifestyle, which includes all areas of your life, you're going to want to incorporate breathing exercises, other meditation like guided meditations, or listening to some of the apps that I mentioned last week. You're going to want to include exercise, both ones to get your heart rate up, get some of those, um, what do you call those things again? Endorphins. Yeah. Get some of those endorphins going because they're going to naturally fight stress properties and lower your cortisol. And you also want to do relaxation, stretching, or yoga, or I don't know, what do they call those? Some of those martial arts are really good for that too. Incorporate whatever works in your life. But remember, you are a whole person. This is not only about weight loss and weight maintenance, but it's about living your best life. So develop that healthy lifestyle and include some relaxation techniques, and you'll do wonders, not just for your physiology, but also for your mood. Okay, guys. So on Thursday, on my next talk, I will give you some more apps that I got a lot of good feedback about how important those apps were that I listed last week. And also, I will give you some more relaxation and meditation and breathing exercises that you can try. So, in between now and then, as always, this is your health. It's your responsibility this day and every day. Make it a good one. I'm going to get my nails done. A little relaxation for myself. All right. Take care. Bye bye.